It is 7 o'clock. I would like to call the May 2nd Soto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Murdoch,
Here.
Ritter.
Here.
Thank you, council. Everyone's present, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item tonight is a proclamation declaring Friday, June 7th as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. This proclamation declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of DeSoto, Kansas, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence and to declare that we as a country must do more to reduce gun violence. Every day, 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average, there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year, and whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other high-income countries, and whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is a mayor's highest responsibility, and whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories, and whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best and are most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe, and whereas in January of 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade, was tragically shot and killed just weeks later, should now be celebrating her 22nd birthday, and whereas to help honor Hadia and the 100 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 7th, 2019, the first Friday in June, as the 5th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, they chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 7th, the first Friday in June 2019, to help raise awareness about gun violence, and Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors, and whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to keep our children safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Rick Walker, Mayor of the City of DeSoto, Kansas, declare the first Friday in June 7th, 2019, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Thank you. Did you ladies want to come up and get your copy of the proclamation and a...
There's President in your booth.
Our next item tonight is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes of our council meeting of April 18th, approval of pay ordinance number 853, approval of cereal malt beverage application for Keyshaw LLC, approval of a temporary use permit for the Grasshopper Barbecue Contest, approval of a temporary use permit for cooking on the cob barbecue, and approval of a temporary use permit for DeSoto Days Festival. Any questions about the consent agenda?
When I was reading through it, I kind of looked like it was the same agenda or the same temporary use permit for the grasshopper and the cooking on the cob. Did they just get scanned twice?
There
the
were some
one?
overlapping pages I noticed
Okay.
as well.
Okay. But there are two different ones. We are approving two different ones. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Next Friday.
Okay.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I mean, it's fine because I know it's the same one and everything. But as long as you had paperwork for both of them, I guess. Okay. Then I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried, Mayor.
Okay. Our next item is to approve pay ordinance number 853A. This was reimbursement for a table at it really probably didn't need to be separated, so.
Okay. I'll make a motion. We approve pay ordinance number 853A.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not roll call, please.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Okay. Our next item is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There is a 4-minute time limit. Please stand and wait to be recognized by the mayor and state your name and address. I would also remind those in the audience that our video, we record and broadcast our meeting so that those discussions that happen in the background are also picked up by our microphones. So keep that in mind as you're sitting in the meeting. Anyone wish to address? Stephanie, please come up.
There's 3 different ones that each council member and the mayor can have.
Is, go off of this packet. Got
Yep,
it.
just one of each, one of those, yep. Thank you. Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Stephanie Swinson, 7909 Wyandotte, DeSoto, Kansas. I'm the GM at JPM Enterprises LLC, known as Great Life, on the north side of the River Bridge. I am here tonight to give you all the concerns about the Call Valley Sand and Gravel Lenape Sand Quarry. This is a name for the new sand mining plant that has been given a special permit to open this site and dig a 55-foot hole down to bedrock and filling it with water from the major tributaries of the Kansas River. Then dredging sand from the pit, loading it on trucks to transporting to a location in Kansas City, Kansas. The sand quality here is a high level of sand content that cannot be found anywhere else else in the United States. This site will be on the north boundary line of the golf course and run all the way to the railroad tracks, railroad crossings, encompassing over 220 acres. This landowner does not live locally, but a state that is over 8.5 hours away. From my perspective, one who does not care about the quality of life in our community. And with all that said, my biggest concern for the residents and businesses of DeSoto, Kansas, a place that cares about the community and the qualities of life. This entire area will endure high levels of traffic, somewhere between 12 to 20 trucks an hour pulling away from the plant and returning for an additional load. This sets everyone up for enduring high volumes of traffic and dangerous conditions to travel north of DeSoto. Second issue of residents and businesses of DeSoto for the impact of noise. This is extremely concerning after reading the Call Valley specs on the noise that it will produce. This noise will be so great that the residents of DeSoto will be enduring this inside their homes. This noise will be created by pumping trucks, front-end loaders, high-capacity water pump, dredging line units, industrial aggregate washers, separator consolidating unit, a high-pitched noise backup for all trucks, and for heavy construction equipment to be used at this plant on a full-time basis. So this unbearable constant noise will travel over a half a mile away. This decibel of noise that Caw Valley documentation shows is a decibel level at 97.3 dB. Well, why don't you might as well call it 100 dB? And how loud is that? Well, with my background with 35 years spent in testing dB levels at the phone company, 97.3 dB will be heard at any place within a 1.5 or a half a mile from the site. The site is 500 yards from the south edge of the Kansas River Bridge, and which is the beginning edge of the city limits. This documentation also states the following about noise reduction. On north side of the bridge, it will read 97.3. The south side of the bridge, it will read 85.2. A quarter of a mile of this site will read 68.8, and a half a mile away will be heard at 62.8 dB. The Caw Valley Sand Company does know that this noise is very undesirable. Therefore, they will be planting trees to absorb the noise that is created. So, however, will the trees be big enough to filter out the noise so DeSoto residents will not be affected with noise pollution? If their lease is 20 years, guess the trees will be big enough when the project is completed. So, one question: will Riverfest Park and Miller Park be a place to enjoy for the quiet and tranquil atmosphere? Are we not here to experience a peaceful environment with our families and these parks provided by our city of DeSoto? If this sand dredging plant moves into the location, those wonderful amenities will be exhausted for the next 20 plus years. It has been extremely hard to absorb all of the negative aspects that our DeSoto residents will be dealing with on a daily basis. Our business, the golf course, was annexed in 2001 and has provided a wonderful refuge for family and friends from all over the Kansas City area. Our customers bring their dollars to the businesses in DeSoto, which produces sales tax for our city. If this quarry gets approved, then our tax dollars will be affected too. Most golfers that I know, including myself, will not be playing golf while enduring an excessive noise level, in which Caw Valley has admitted is in their documentation. I am asking the local government of DeSoto to help stop this quarry from moving in and affecting the lives of our residents and businesses. The DeSoto residents and businesses deserve to live and work in a town that we call home.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else wish to address the council tonight? Sir?
My name is Joan Vandergriff, and my husband and I are the owners of Caprine Supply here in DeSoto. We have been property owners and business owners here for 34 years, and we live just across the river in Leavenworth County. Like most of you, we moved here over 30 years ago because of the quality of life, safety for our children, cleaner air, the peaceful quiet, less traffic, and closeness to nature. The building of a sand quarry right across the river from DeSoto will threaten all of these qualities of life we moved here for. Most of you understand the concept NIMBY, not in my backyard, but this sand quarry will not only impact my backyard, but your backyard. While the route for the sand quarry trucks will take them through Leavenworth County back roads, the quarry will sell sand to any companies who want it, and that means that trucks will be coming through DeSoto also. This truck traffic and the sand quarry itself will be putting the safety of our children who play in our front yards at risk, will be polluting the air that we and our families breathe, will be adding to the rivers, adding to the ever-growing traffic that we contend with daily, and will be destroying the quiet atmosphere we now enjoy. Since the quarry will operate from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday and is needed on Saturday, these impacts will become part of our daily life. This is not just a Leavenworth County problem. I urge you to think hard about what you want your and your family's future life here to look like. We don't want our families, our businesses, our children, our river, our roads, wildlife, and flora to be impacted by a large-scale, noisy, dirty industrial operation in our backyards. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on call to public? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on. Number 3, old business, we have none. Number 4, new business. Consider resolution establishing a date and time for a public hearing for a TIF district in the 340,000 block of Commerce Drive. Patrick or
Yes, council, or bond council Gina's here as well. But really all that's before you is a resolution to schedule a public hearing. At the public hearing, we'll have in your packet a development agreement that will, set forth requirements imposed by the city, and further detail on exactly the agreement between the city and the developer. So, again, this is just a resolution setting the public hearing. But happy to answer any questions, or, like I said, Gina is here, and I'm sure she'd be happy to address you as
Okay.
well.
Any questions from council regarding the resolution?
No, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 1013 is written and submitted in our packet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? If not, roll call, please.
Murdock,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Okay,
Thanks for coming, Gina.
our next item tonight is to consider a lease agreement for a water department forklift.
Yes, Council, in the 2019 budget, there is $5,000 for the first of what was contemplated to be a 5-year lease on a new forklift for the wastewater department. The current unit is, I think it's a 1986 unit, really on its last legs and needed some repairs. The wastewater department uses a forklift daily to handle sludge that comes out of the process end of the sewer plant. There's roll-off dumpsters that we have to move around. Also, the forklift can be used on occasion at the water plant to move some heavy materials around. So this is part of the vehicle and equipment replacement program. This would be contracting equipment, so the general intent is to lease this equipment rather than purchase. The forklift then at $5,000 budget, what we typically do with purchases like this is take advantage of a cooperative leasing purchase agreement or purchase bids through the Mid-America Regional Council. They didn't have anything on forklifts this year, so we had to go out and get 3 separate bids for similar type equipment. So we did that. We did have 3 bids in your packet. We were able to demo 2 of those pieces of equipment. And actually, our preferred piece was actually the lowest cost piece as well. So we're asking for your approval on a 5-year lease through John Deere Financial. Did I pull up the wrong one? This is the roller. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. I've been talking about a forklift.
Clark
Do I have
forklift.
okay. I've been talking about a forklift, but I'm not sure that's the. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got them wrong on the agenda items. So the forklift then is through what is it? Commercial Capital is actually the leasing agent. $4,500 per year per 5 years. So if you're comfortable moving forward with that, like a motion authorizing me to sign those lease documents.
Okay, questions for Mike on the lease?
Mike, did you guys think, we lease a Bobcat now, right?
Yeah.
Is there any attachments for the front of that Bobcat for a forklift? Is that looked into?
Yeah, there are, but it doesn't work the same. It doesn't have the same range of motion, and we really need we really need the lift every day at the wastewater plant. So we couldn't really shuffle that back and forth effectively, really.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Not a motion, please?
I'll make a motion, we authorize the city administrator to sign the lease documents with Commercial Capital in an annual lease amount of $4,500 for 5 years.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Our next item is consider lease agreement for street department asphalt roller.
Yeah, similar story on this, except there's a little background. We actually had this budgeted last year in 2018 budget for a similar lease arrangement, 5-year lease arrangement for the asphalt roller. At the time, we were talking with our supplier about a seasonal lease, and so last year what we did is we just seasonally rented the asphalt roller. We started that rental in May, and we thought we would save quite a bit of money doing it that way. We'd budgeted just under $11,000 per year for that. Turned out we kept that thing through September. We weren't expecting to keep it that long. It wound up costing us a little bit under $17,000. So we knew we didn't want to do that again. So we talked with our supplier, and they agreed to roll that into a 5-year lease, refund about $7,000 of the money we spent last year into this lease purchase arrangement. And so the 5 years would start now and go another 5 years. So the total annual payment is $74.8137 on that. Again, this is through our supplier, the John Deere Murphy Tractor, who is our John Deere representative, and we will add this on to the other lease equipment we have through them. We have a backhoe. We'll have another backhoe next year. We have a front loader, this piece of equipment. So the lease documents have been pretty well vetted through Patrick and through the council previously. So we're asking now for your approval of that 5-year lease through John Deere Financial with annual lease payments of $74.8137.
Okay. Questions for Mike on the roller?
I'll make a motion, we authorize the city administrator to sign the lease documents with John Deere Financial in an annual lease payment of $7,481.37.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion of the motion? If not, roll call, please.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
All right. Moving on, we are going to our 2020 budget discussion.
Yes, council, I don't have a presentation this evening. We gave a 20 or 30-minute presentation at the last meeting. We didn't have much discussion there at the last meeting about what was presented. So for tonight's purposes in the staff report, I've really just highlighted the main policy directives that are included in the proposed 2020 budget. These are the ones that might be different than we've done in years past, or specific policy directives that we kind of need to make a purposeful decision on each year. So there are a number of them on the staff report. I'll go through them just quickly. First of all, I'm just reading from the staff report here. The draft budget proposals a level mill levy. We're not going up or down. The property tax lid we've calculated, and we are essentially maxing out what we're allowed to do under state law in terms of general fund property tax assessments. We are including the $750,000 contingency line item. We've done that for the last, this will be the 3rd year for that. In terms of wages for employees, the budget shows a 4% increase total. The cost of living this year, that index will be 1.5%. unless that changes drastically between now and the end of the year. So that will leave 2.5% as a merit-based increase. We are increasing our economic development funding from 55,000 to 90,000, and we can talk a little bit more about our day-long work session or retreat that we had, economic development, yesterday. In terms of staffing, the budget includes $40,000 for a part-time communications and outreach person. That person would be, based here at City Hall. And the thought now is that would be a person, but it could also be a consultant. Haven't really nailed that down yet. We're going to add one person in the water department, one full-time equivalent. And we talked about adding personnel in the Parks and Rec department on the recreational programming side, but the 2020 budget does not include any money for any additional personnel in that department. Vehicle equipment and replacement program, we won't have any. We do. We have a 5-year lease on a new backhoe for the street department, a new dump truck, and a new 3/4-ton pickup truck. Those are all in the street department. The water department has 3 new, essentially service trucks, F-250s, in there. It's not really budgeted, but I'll put it in the narrative about our policy relating to selling the older equipment on Purple Wave or a similar online auction site, and then having that money go back to the Electric Reserve Fund to keep funding our program. Item number 8 talks about the building maintenance and asset management funds. Community Center, $35,000, Aquatic Center, $25,000, Water Department, $45,000, and Sewer Department, $15,000. These are, again, along the idea of rotating asset management program that lives beyond the budget year so that we can plan those improvements long-term like we do with our capital improvements. We are increasing our road maintenance efforts from $400,000 to $450,000 in next year's budget. So that doesn't get us to a fully funded asset management program, but it's a step in the right direction. In terms of capital improvements, we do show in our CIP schedule new debt, $750,000 of new debt. In terms of projects, we'll be designing a lot, Miller Park drainage project, and we'll be designing the roundabout and the sewer extension for the 95th Street corridor. All of those are design projects. We'll also have an annual sidewalk program of $20,000 and the security improvements here at City Hall and asbestos removal at $120,000. Water and sewer rates, we are showing an increase. I would call this an inflationary increase for the water of 1.8 and the sewer of 2.5. Like we always do, toward the end of the year, we'll assess where the health of those funds are and the revenues that we collected in this year and make a final decision in January about those increases if we need those. The last thing on the list is an increase in transfer from the water fund to the general fund to pay the general fund back for administrative support services here at City Hall that go toward the water fund, increasing that from $40,000 to $80,000. Those are the main policy directives. As I saw them going through the draft budget, you may have others. We can talk about all these or talk about none of them and talk about other areas that you want more clarity or focus on.
Who want back up and talk about any of these? Anybody have one want to work through them one by one?
No, I'm comfortable with the work that he's done. I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
Kevin? Danny?
Okay.
Rob?
Good job of making it clear. I'm comfortable.
Lori?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Maybe one question, the capital improvements, the 750,000 new debt.
Right.
can you, where's that coming from?
Yeah, well, it'll be new general obligation debt, but what is it paying for? What projects is it going to support? Is that the question, or is it?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm just trying to match up the CIP projects
Oh,
with, are there other CIP projects, or are these the ones we're focusing on for
these are the ones that are
2020?
programmed to be completed next year. Those on that bullet list. Now, the $750,000 in new debt we could attribute to some or all of those, but essentially in the 5-year CIP, it's really just a cash flow thing. We knew we needed $750,000 to cash flow the CIP throughout the term of that CIP. I have in my spreadsheet for that. We can find projects to assign that specifically to, and we will need to do that obviously when we go out if we issue that debt. But that's just what's programmed mostly from a cash flow standpoint. So. We'll carry over quite a bit for this year into next year. But what you were doing is kind of building up because the following year and the years after we're still in the CIP, we have a public works facility, which we're hoping not to need. So we'll need to modify that. The roundabout construction at 1.2 million or so. So it's kind of a cash flow thing. Do you have that spreadsheet? Do you have the CIP spreadsheet?
Well, I've got two different ones, and so I'm trying to I was kind of trying to figure that. But like when the one I have maybe isn't the most recent one you have, because the one I have in front of me has like Riverfest restrooms, but it doesn't have the security improvements. So there's some differences. So I don't know if but I
Okay.
know that those aren't things that we have definitely settled on, or have we definitely settled it?
Well, really, the only thing we need to definitely settle on are that list of stuff for next year. I mean, that's kind of what is formally budgeted. But we do, that 5-year, if we have the latest version, that's the one we're working from. So, nothing's formal until we actually budget the funds, and that's not even commitment until you commit to spending the funds. But
Right.
I'm just trying to find here the most recent version of the CIP spreadsheet. I'm not sure exactly where I can.
And then on the webpage, don't you have the?
That's an old version
That's
there.
the old, that one's not the current.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it probably does deserve kind of a detailed discussion on the CIP, where we're at and which projects we're implementing.
Yeah.
Sounds like
would like to kind of review those again at some point.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, I've got two different ones that were both from this year, because I just printed these both off,
Yeah.
and neither of them are really quite the same as what you have right there. And so I'm just kind of,
Yeah, it's fuzzy where we stand with that. Because like you said, the Riverfest restrooms are still on there, but when last time we talked about,
4B.
There you go, 4B.
and this is probably one of those that she has
Yeah.
with her.
yeah, it was one of the,
Of course.
Oops.
Server's been in and out today. Let me see if I can. I don't think it's going to come up immediately.
that's fine.
Let's put that CIP. Well, I can get it out to you. I can get the latest version out certainly to you tomorrow. But let's make a point to have that, close that loop in terms of the CIP where
Aligning.
it stands as we work through the rest of the budget. Maybe this will do it. Okay, let's see if it's on here. Okay. So here's where this 750,000 shows up. So this, Lori, is, you had a page that looks a lot like this. And you'll remember when we were looking at the CIP update, I added to that spreadsheet this page. Do you have that page with you there? There's the $750,000 in new debt is shown here. Now this was from February. So at the time, I was contemplating that for projects 26, 29, and 30, which were the roundabout, the sewers, a sewer extension project. I'm sorry, the roundabout, the city hall improvements, and the Lexington Avenue pedestrian crossing improvements.
Okay.
Those were the three that I attributed that 750. They don't have to be those three. Like I was saying, it's kind of, we're looking at the ending balance in the CIP spreadsheet, and it's sort of a cash flow thing, and the pinch year is 2023. We'll get down to almost zero.
Okay.
And again, this was a scenario where we're looking at $8 million in new debt, and we know that, you know, if we don't have to build a public works facility, that'll be reduced. So, I don't know if that was even your question, Lori, if that
It's fine.
comes close to answering. But we do still have in this version, the restrooms at Riverfest is still on this version. And this version was for next year. We know the last time we talked about this year is $450,000 allocation we talked about doing, and I have an update for my report for that later.
That's fine.
So we'll make a point at the next meeting to make sure that everybody has this most recent version. We're all on the same page. We know exactly what we're doing for next year. We know pretty much what we're doing for 2021, and we know what the plan is for the other three. I think that's kind of the intent. That's why we.
So, realizing that we're going to talk about it in the future, and know when we put these on here, we're not spending this money, but it's a plan.
It is, yeah.
So is it pretty much our thought and plan then that the roundabout design is something that if we're going to spend $250,000, we should be committing to that. That's what
Yes.
we think is needing to be done. And have we all, I guess I know we keep throwing it in there, but, have we kind of decided as a council that this needs to be done? Or you as the
Well, I think we did
engineer
when we
that we
decided
need
to
to?
put it on the CIP, right? I mean,
Well, so there's decision points all through here, right? And any council at any time can decide something different than they did in the meeting before. That's all fine.
Right.
But so we introduced it. We got a little bit pregnant with the idea when we introduced it into the CIP. We got a little bit pregnant with the idea when we made our CARS application. Remember, a couple of months ago, we made this 5-year CARS plan. We're asking for money for half the construction. So we got a little more pregnant with it at that time. If we move down this path, we'll get a little bit more pregnant when we approve the 2020 budget, because it's got $250,000 to design the thing. The rubber really hits the road next year when we are hiring that consultant and we're signing that consultant project to have them survey and design and do that $250,000 worth of work. That's really when the rubber really meets the road. But I think every step of the way, you're saying to the community, this is what we think the right direction is, and this is the direction we're headed for now.
Okay. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against
it's a good
the
point.
idea.
It's a good point
I
to
just
make.
want to make sure that it's clear that it's in here, that I see it as a fact that we've come to the decision that we are going to do this roundabout by putting this in a budget, that, we're not going to spend $250,000, that we're not
Right.
going to do it. So it's in here, and it is this council's plan that roundabout is going to happen within the next few years.
Correct. Yep. Good point. That's why the budget's such a policy doc. It really is the most direct policy document that you have. You're not just saying it. You're putting your money where your mouth is. Good. Good
Okay.
discussion.
That's That's good with me, then. I mean, I like all the other items that we've done. I think I've talked to you a little bit about the economic development monies, and I think that'll be more clear after we discuss the meetings that have been going on and moving forward through the future on that.
Yeah.
But my concern is just not that the EDC thinks that all of a sudden they're just going to be throwing some extra money, that, we have an actual plan for that. But I've talked to you about that, and I think that, I feel more comfortable with
Yeah.
how we'll go about, especially the fact that we have 3 of us on the EDC. So
And we certainly did get some more focus and direction yesterday, when we spent all day with Mary Birch and that whole engagement process. I think it's more clear, now than it was Tuesday.
Definitely.
okay. And just one last thing, then, the building maintenance and asset management. Those are, again, there'll be kind of a direction with kind of a wish list, or kind of what type of things would be on that compared to just regular maintenance that's in the rest of the budget. That'll be something that is kind of spelled out, or not really.
Yeah, my thought on so leaving the water and the sewer kind of out of it for now. The community center and aquatic center, each year, it's kind of like the road maintenance thing. Each year, we know we have something that needs fixed, and we budget it for next year, and we hope it lasts, until we can spend that money for next year. But then the following year, there's something else, and those dollar amounts go up and down, and there's never really a long-term plan to kind of address the whole system maintenance of the whole facility. So my thought on that, and these dollar amounts, it's kind of funny because these dollar amounts are for specific things, just like we always have. Well, this boiler room thing needs fixed, and there's some windows and doors, so that's going to be about $35,000. That's the dollar amount we have in the budget. Same thing with the aquatic center. But the thought is to get these funds set up and treat it like a 5-year CIP, that we know we have ongoing needs for the whole facility. We'll try to come up with some estimate on how much we're going to need to spend each year to maintain all the systems on the entire facility. See if we can budget that each year. And then each year, you're not budgeting for windows and doors here and tuck pointing out there. You're budgeting for the building maintenance. And then we decide what in this 5-year program we're going to be spending each year on the building. And hopefully that funding level can get as close to fully funded as we possibly can. It's a similar story in the water and sewer department, except for those facilities, you have an entire system to maintain, not just the treatment facilities and buildings here and there, but you have all the lines that are in place. You have the water towers, you have the pump stations. It's more of a comprehensive asset management, really true asset management program that you'll be implementing there. The water department at $45,000, that's not a bad starting point. The sewer, I think, is going to need a little more, but that fund isn't quite as healthy as the water. So that was my vision on that, and I think doing this, although the dollar figures might not exactly be there, it'll give us some direction moving forward to come up with, okay, what does a dollar figure need to be, and have that discussion and start planning long term for the just for the long term maintenance and upkeep of the facilities. Is that what everybody else was thinking?
That's what we went through the presentation a couple of meetings ago, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's the cost and the useful life of an item, and basically divide the life by the cost, and
Exactly.
and then put it in a spreadsheet and say, every year this much stuff's going to fail.
we did
and
it.
along those lines, I guess, because really some of these dollar values you're talking about, $25,000. I mean, in the scheme of repair items, that's not a big item. And you could have a major mechanical failure. You could have a major roof failure that's going to cost us a lot more than that. So, I didn't have a question before. Maybe I do now, but we're budgeting these in for that kind of that routine expectations. How will you handle reserves if we do have some other facility or asset failure that needs funded?
Right now, it's in general fund reserves. I mean, that's where that'd be.
And we just pick that out of alternatives of how the city's going to spend.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's variety of
Right.
general fund.
Right now, if the building collapsed on this building, first of all, there'd be insurance.
Right.
But if there's a
But if
gap
it's
there,
a failure of some sort that's not insured, it's
Yeah,
just
it'd be-
an operations failure, then.
yeah. So that's why you
But
keep.
there
those
is some, I mean,
fund
we've got
reserves.
cash reserves to handle those kinds
Exactly.
of things.
That's what it would be
But-
now.
The
But
idea
this
is
is-
that builds up to be
that
that
builds
cash
up,
reserve
yeah.
to cover this. So every year you don't spend what you're putting in. then
Yeah.
you're-
Right.
You're building up a reserve fund that will manage those.
Yeah, you build it up to a certain level, and maybe it levels
Yeah,
off at some.
and that's kind of as I understood it until we started talking it through here.
Okay.
Okay, well, my intent then is to have the full draft budget to you with all the narratives and line item details, and of course, all this stuff that we'll eventually approve. I want to have that for you in your hands for the next meeting. That'll be my goal, so we can go from there. And on the budget, on the calendar, yeah, so I think June 6th would be kind of the cutoff where we need to decide on an election.
I think we're
Don't know if
pretty
we're,
well
don't think we're
convinced we
heading
don't
there.
need an election.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, I
right.
think that's where we are. We're pretty sure we do not need an election, so
Right.
we do have a little flexibility there. But
Right. Okay.
get it done early, and you can have summer off, Mike. Right?
The whole summer. All right. Oh, we got some concerts to put on now. So.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Our next item: discuss the 2020 CDBG project selection.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's that time of year where we discuss the Community Development Block Grant Program and our application for 2020. As you recall, last year, the council approved the extension from Lexington East to Valley Spring, and that project is currently under design with Milburn Engineering. Mike and I have put together is some of these projects were from last year that were not selected. We did add project number 5, the signal crossings that we have, and potentially Valley Springs for pedestrians crossing on the trail system. Obviously, the new one would be at Valley Spring potentially. The others have been projects that have been presented to you before. We don't really have a strong recommendation on any one of these. They're all pretty equal as far as their need. As you can tell, we do have a sidewalk evaluation that's in your council packet that staff put together several years ago. We do have a higher priority, which is item 4. It's a connection from the Aquatic Center out to Lexington Trail, but you can debate whether that could be an equal with some of the others on the list. The one we did add was item 6, which is the extension from Ottawa to Delaware on 82nd Street. The only thing I might add to that is 82nd Street. I mean, it's kind of, 83rd Street's kind of the crest of the hill, and as you go north, it sort of curls down and slopes. So that street, there's a lot of hill on this side, and then there's the street, and then it drops off pretty quick. So there would be a fair amount of cut into that hillside and retaining walls or fill on the other side, depending on which side of the street we ultimately decided to go with. This item will also appear on your May 16th agenda with a public hearing and has been advertised, and then the 23rd, this application is due to the county. So with that, I will stand for any questions you might have on these projects, and certainly feel free to bring up any others that you might have. I guess keep in mind that they need to be horizontal infrastructure. We've done a water line 2 years ago, so it's really going to be utilities, pedestrian paths, things like that. And it really is, DeSoto's got 3 census block districts, and really census blocks 1 and 2 are the only ones that are eligible. So basically the east side of town is not.
So it couldn't be for replacing lighting uptown with some sort of historic downtown fixture.
That's a good question. I would have to contact the county and see if they would allow something like that.
Well, it's not one on the list, but it's
Right.
an element from a prior plan. has been mentioned.
Of course, the one thing that they like to see, and I did attend there, I mean, every year they have a workshop, and they always emphasize it's something that does need to benefit the lower class individuals in your area. And that's why the census block, actually, if you go by the pure numbers, only census block 1, which is basically Old DeSoto, qualifies, but they did give us some grace.
So are we a signal crossing would be the,
Well, that's kind of interesting because Lexington is the divider between the census blocks, and a signal crossing.
would go from one to the other?
Yeah, I don't know how
So,
they do.
but that's block 2 though, isn't it? South of Lexington? That's not eligible?
It is, block 2 is eligible, but block 2 actually goes farther south, and I can't quite remember where the dividing line is between block 2 and 3. There's actually basically Old Town, then there's block 2, and then there's block 3 that goes all the way eastward.
I guess my question is, do we think that if we're putting the sidewalk in, I would love to see us be able to put an enhanced crossing in, like at Valley Springs Drive and at WIA, so that now, because we're going to have a new sidewalk and a new crossing location, and it would be the perfect time then to put the signal in to highlight that crossing, make it as safe as possible from the start.
You're referring to the one at Valley.
Valley Springs, it would complement the CDBG project we're doing this year then, to get people across and in, but it doesn't.
Would those be a hawk signal or like the one at Dollar General?
My thought is those are hawk. The $50,000 is a lot more than what we would need for the rapid flashing beacon.
We were thinking the Hawk things, yeah.
It seems like a safety concern, the one by Valley Springs.
But if we don't think it would score well in our grant application, I mean, we have been shot down before.
We
because
have.
We didn't. I don't remember what it was.
Well, I was going to ask, were we not shot down for the connection between Lexington and
here?
the city hall before?
Yeah, I don't think we were. We applied for some a Safe Routes grant or a KDOT grant through that we did not get.
A different type of grant.
But it is true though, the CDBG stuff through the county, the parks and the recreation stuff tends to score lower. I mean, they really
maybe it was did we do a connection to Riverfest once or try and include? I think we tried to include a sidewalk from downtown down to Riverfest, and that didn't
go.
Didn't make the cut. I believe.
And that was the KDOT grant that we didn't.
That was that. Okay. All right. I thought there was a CDBG one that we didn't.
Well, there was. I'm trying to think what it was.
I don't remember what it was.
I really thought
maybe it was a water line. I don't know.
Had one that didn't pass.
I thought it was because it was this. We didn't weren't benefiting enough people in the right census district. Or
right.
Something.
But. There are years that are more competitive than others. It's kind of hit and miss.
Yeah. So,
are there projects we can think of other than sidewalks that we might? I threw out the lighting.
I mean, nothing wrong with doing sidewalks.
It's a maintenance item, and it's a maintenance item that does score high, so we can get funded. So,
and it was also an item that scored high within our public feedback.
Yeah.
And our people want to be able to walk.
Yeah.
And get to places.
So if we can make those sidewalk improvements in those, the older residential areas, then we don't have to spend city funds on that. We can spend city funds elsewhere. So my feeling I would support rejuvenating sidewalks with the money that we have a higher likelihood of getting instead of going after something that we then don't get anything.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, the ones to the east are the more likely sidewalk projects.
The ones towards the north.
I mean, to the north.
North.
Yeah.
Toward the
north.
right on the.
Yeah, to the north.
Yeah, sorry about the rotation on the map. Yeah, and I would say Project 6 there, the one along 82nd Street that Brad was talking about, that shows up in the Parks and Rec Master Plan as one that is they focused on a need. I think
Because it causes downtown circulation, or
the intent would be to eventually connect the Miller Park
But
with
to-
Riverfest.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
connecting the two parks already, so it's a
It's
good head start on.
between the
It's
two
the-
parks.
Yeah.
Starting piece of that link.
And it's also I mean, a connection to the park anyway for people to be using. It seems like it would be something that
We
would
looked
be
at the roadway
used.
with there may be extra room in that pavement too. I don't know if that road I don't know.
Well,
That roadway
yeah, the
seems-
right of ways are really wide through
And
there.
it seems like
but-
the roadway the pavement might even be a little bit wider. That there might be an opportunity to slide a curb line, 2 or 3 feet, 4 feet to avoid a wall and still have a space for a walk. I would support. I mean, that would make good sense to me if we could.
Yeah, it's a good one to.
It has no walks at all, sidewalks at all.
All right. I like 6.
Nope, it doesn't look like he's got any extra.
26, 28.
It'll be a challenge on some of that high side.
Well, yeah.
High side, low side stuff. So it looks like should be more on the south side to line up with sidewalks that are already there then, right?
Yep. Yep. So it'd be from Delaware on to Ottawa.
Delaware to Ottawa.
And
Yeah, these are pretty steep
the
in here.
dollar amount that you have in here kind of is already taken into account the extra,
The difficulty of
the difficulty of it and the
Yeah,
retaining walls.
I
and
would
the-
say a little bit. I mean, that's basically my
or it's
sort of
there
best
to
shot
max
at
out
it
our
without-
grant amount, right?
Yeah, it might be more. At this point, it's kind of it's a little bit tough to say, but yeah.
But we could always add our 20,000 from our regular
Mm-hmm.
project to it, and so even though it's this, we could know that if we got it, we'd be,
Yeah.
that 20 could go with it.
Right. And we're required to give a 10% match.
So it would be a minimum 110,
110.
and then with the other 20 it would be 130. So a 30% bump over 100 for
If, yeah, if
3
need be.
blocks, 4 blocks of sidewalk.
But again, it's connecting on a
Yeah,
good start to
it's-
connect to Riverfest
Right.
Park,
Now,
which
how
is
much further then east does that existing sidewalk go? It doesn't.
It
quite-
goes all the way to the park.
It does get us all.
Yeah,
the
it
way
goes
to the park.
through.
Yeah. So great.
winds
Yeah.
up and it gets you there. Yeah.
okay.
And it looks like, just from street view, it looks like the curbs are in decent shape. So was that a curb and gutter project at some point in recent history?
Not recently.
Just some good concrete.
Good concrete.
Good concrete back
Yeah,
in the,
Had the good aggregate.
Yep. Yeah, they are good looking curves.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
There's your challenge.
Yeah, it's this.
Yeah, but if you did it to the back of curb,
Right.
you could mitigate it.
Thanks for that black hole, Mike.
Sorry. NASA gets you a picture of a black hole and it's all over the news. I get it and nobody likes it. Yeah.
Did you put the new computer in over there yet?
Well, the new computer's in, but the new internet service
Oh,
is
okay.
not. And we are our server, our old server, the ones that we have budgeted to replace next year, is having some trouble this week.
Gotcha.
IT's been in 2 days, so we're struggling.
Mike, at Shawnee Street? It's a lot steeper than this. So I don't know where you're at exactly, but seems like it because I drove the route today and it was.
Yeah, Shawnee. I think this is Shawnee
Yeah.
here.
And that's parcel's due for redevelopment, right?
It is. Yeah, it
Somebody
has
was
been.
looking. I mean,
Yeah, that is an advantage. There isn't anything
potentially
yet
that
There's
could be
nothing on it.
regraded to improve that a little bit, maybe. What is that beautiful water facility?
Isn't that nice?
Okay, so
Yeah, that'd be a good project.
consensus on the 82nd Street, or
I'm good with 82nd Street.
I like it.
all right.
We'll if that's the direction, we'll refine that cost estimate a little bit so we have a more clear understanding of what we're going to be applying for. And of course, the public hearing is a chance for the public to come and give their input on the project.
Great.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Brad. Item 5, executive session. Anything? All right.
This evening.
Item 6, advisory reports. City administrator.
I'll apologize. I have three items. Two of them will be pretty quick. wanted to let you know that we will soon be starting the third year of our fire hydrant flushing program with the fire district. You know, the last 2 years they've gone through the city and flushed hydrants throughout the system. That gives them a chance to look at the hydrants, make sure they're in working order, make sure they know where they are. They give us a punch list.
Do they verify flow when they're doing that, or
They-
they just opening them up and making
No,
sure
they
work?
do flow tests as
Okay.
well. We don't flow test every hydrant because that would take so much water
Right.
that would strain our capacity. But they do. So the goal is to flow test every hydrant once every 3 or 4 years. So they'll test about a third of the ones they flow.
Great.
It's kind of a public relations, public information project a little bit because it does on occasion, especially that first year, cause brown water. So what we're doing, rather than hanging door hangers at every neighborhood, we decided to distribute an every door direct mailer that just says, you know, we're, in the next couple months we'll be flushing the hydrants throughout town. If you have any brown water, you know, run your fixtures, whatever. If you have any problems, call City Hall. So we'll be sending that out likely next week. It'll be hitting everybody's mailbox. And we think we'll be able to flush probably the whole system within a couple of months. Really just depends on the fire department's
Their
workload. They're really the
availability.
ones that are doing the work. Of course, they coordinate with us and make sure that we know what neighborhoods they'll be in, and if they have any big problems, they'll notify us. So that'll be kicking off here in the next several weeks.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to let you know about is some sanitary sewer smoke testing that we'll be doing in the DeMeadows subdivision. I think with this recent rain, we're going to try and do that maybe as early as next week, but I think we'll probably have to put it off for another week. I think you might remember that we have some problems with inflow and infiltration into the DeMeadows pump station. That's really started 4 or 5 years ago. Every time we get a good heavy rain, that pump station just gets inundated and overloaded. We know there's surface water runoff that gets into that system somewhere. And the smoke testing, what they do is they put blowers on the manholes and they inject smoke into the sewer lines. And they look for it to come out of the ground or a curb inlet or somewhere that's connected to the sanitary sewer system that shouldn't be, where rainwater could get in. Trouble with it is, could be, yeah. Well, you won't get sump pumps because those are pumped. They don't really show up with a smoke test. But the trouble is, it has a potential to fill somebody's house with this smoke. If they have a P trap that's dried out and it's letting sewer gas into the house, then the smoke will fill the house too. It's a double-edged sword because you don't want your house filled with sewer gas because that could be deadly. So if your house fills with this smoke, you'll know you've got a P trap that's, you need to put some water in. Smoke comes out the smoke vents as well, and people think their house is on fire. So it really has potential to kind of cause some disruption. So we will be hanging door hangers. We're just going to test the DeMeadows area. We'll be hanging door hangers a couple days in advance of that. And of
Coordinate that with the fire
Of course,
department. there.
coordination with the fire department and police too. So I'm thinking that'll probably be the week after next. Hopefully we find the source of inflow. Doug was telling me just after this rain this week that, that pump has been running almost nonstop. And it really shouldn't be. We really think that there's a major source of inflow that we'll be able to find.
It almost have to be more than a house canal. I mean, it's like
It's
gotta
gotta be-
a broken main, a jarred manhole.
Thinking of a manhole lid that's off, that's next to the
Right.
creek. When
Uh-huh.
the creek comes up, it goes in. I mean, that's the
Right.
type of flow we're talking about.
Going on that back road, there was some manholes behind homes.
Yeah, well, there's manholes right along the creek from Hudamaki on up.
Right.
And there's a crossing under a major drainage way there. So we're thinking it's one or two big things. We'll find out.
Okay.
The last item on my report is Riverfest restrooms. We talked about a couple meetings ago that we wanted to move forward with that project, and we had estimated that at about $140,000. I've had Steve Chick updating his cost estimates on this. We wanted to talk just a little bit about the plan, the location for the restrooms, and how we want to implement that. So What I've got up on the screen is the master plan for the park. This is the final version of that master plan we've been working with. So the Southern Loop Drive area, the festival area that's in, the stage is here. The master plan has a restroom facility right here. And that, I think, is where we want to put these restrooms. There's also restroom facilities up here closer to the boat ramp, but those are larger in scale. They may have showers included with them and a structure to support these RV stall parking. But the bathroom facility we're thinking about is, and we want to verify this with everybody, it will be right here. So it's the main gate to the festival area is here. There's already a sidewalk along here. Essentially, it would be just at the end of that sidewalk, right adjacent to the parking area. Water and power are relatively close. Sewer, what we'll do, the main sewer force main that comes from the main lift out to the sewer treatment plant runs right almost through the park along 79th Street. We're planning on installing a small sewer package lift station here just outside the restroom and pumping it into that force main. That's not something that's, I mean, it's done. It's not the best, but we think it's better than the alternative, which would be an on-site septic system. That
Or
might
we
have to
buy
worry
a pump
about
truck and
loads.
we just empty
A holding tank. No, we're not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we're not interested in the old
No.
Corps of Engineers hole in the ground. So
Yeah.
that's the plan. Of course, backflow prevention on this is important, but the fact that it'll be the pump won't be inside the restroom. It'll be a standalone pit, its own self-contained outside. So that's the layout, the plan for
We're
the
looking at a
location.
restroom similar to what Johnson County has put in
Yeah.
at Lexington Lake, the precast concrete structures.
Well, I don't know if it's precast. So
I think those that came in on trucks, didn't they?
yeah. So Steve's been in contact with a couple of companies that do that sort of
looks
thing.
Similar to what I've
This is the Model A.
Yeah.
These are block units that would be built. They're built somewhere in Nevada, I think, and trucked in here on a truck. We'd have to, of course, put a footing of some sort in there, but the concrete base is already here. This model here, just 2 restrooms with a utility chase in the middle. If we purchase that through this company we've been talking with, it's about $130,000. We'll have some other site work, $20,000 or $30,000. We think we could make this all package happen for about $160,000. The next model up from that would be essentially 3 unisex bathrooms, one of which would be ADA. This model here is about $170,000. You add the site work, we're at about $200,000 there. And then the Cadillac version would be this. So men's and women's, 2 stall, essentially men's and women's on each side. Looks like that one's going to be about $230,000. So this delivery mechanism would be, we would do the foundation's utility work. We'll just order this unit from the company. They bring it in on a truck and put it and lay it down. We've talked with Dave Anderson about a construction manager delivery mechanism for this, where we would actually just build this, essentially. Just build the block, install the fixtures, build it ourselves. We think under that arrangement, the construction manager arrangement through KBS, we could probably save maybe $40,000 or $50,000 on these costs. So doing it that way, we could be within our 140. If we wanted to go with just with the bare bones, we could pretty easily within 140. We could probably get it within our 140 with the intermediate 3 bathroom arrangement, and we'd be a little bit more, probably somewhere around 150 or 170 with the Cadillac version. So I think it's not a delivery mechanism that we've done before. The construction manager at risk is essentially what it is, and the way it works is, we'd enter a contract with KBS. They would go out and get bids for the building of the unit and the plumbing and the electrical and everything. 3 bids for each, present those to us. We'd take the low bid on each one of those or decide which bid we want to go with. And if the entire project comes out lower than the maximum rate, then we realize those savings. If it's above, then that's construction manager at risk portion. He would have a maximum price in the contract that he couldn't go over. So I think that's worth pursuing, especially with the potential savings involved, and just the staff workload and time implementing this would definitely save us on the schedule. I don't think there's any way we can have this for our summer events, but certainly, I think we could implement this certainly this year.
We can sell off naming rights for this facility and get.
Sell blocks in the wall. Yeah. So just wanted to get your feedback on that. I'm sorry, I didn't want to take a whole lot of time on a staff
thoughts for
report
Mike
item.
on a restroom at Riverfest. First of all, the location. To me, it looks like it makes sense. That's the spot that we would probably want to start with one at.
Yeah, I agree. I think we want to stick with the plan that we have, and so
Pick off
with-
pieces of this master
just
plan as we
keep
can do it.
working it as we can do it, and we don't have the funding to do a huge one, but I think it is important to get something permanent down there.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
It's definitely the shortest route for the utilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like the middle plan, the 3
I do too.
unisex.
Yeah, do we have a feel for how big it should be in terms of number of fixtures?
That's the other thing. You're not going to build one big enough for the
For the
events.
peaks,
Not gonna do
right?
And frankly, for every other day down there,
One
is probably
So,
fine.
yeah, so I
Not a
assume
lot.
on an event, then it's going to be augmented with.
We'll still have to have the portables in
you'd
for a
augment
big
it with
event.
portables. But this would be
Right.
kind of for routine purposes. This
Yeah.
would
And of
satisfy.
course, during events, there'll be a line outside of these.
Right. 'cause
As
they're
it
a
gets
little nicer.
longer than the porta potties will get
You're right.
used.
Well, you can also decrease the number of porta potties a little bit.
Yeah, a little.
Certainly.
Yeah, because you would just, figure out how many you need and knock it down with these as being some of the permanents there, so.
Okay. What other questions did you have? I think we.
I think that was it.
Okay. Any heartburn or issues with the construction manager at risk? I mean, to me, if we can save money, it makes sense, right? I mean,
Well, saving money and local people doing
Right.
the jobs instead of somebody in Nevada. I'm good with that too.
yeah, getting something trucked in.
I mean,
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. We're excited about that. It'll be a nice addition down there.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks. That's it from me.
Okay. City attorney. You have
Just counsel real quick, I put this memo in your packet on Oak Country, the sidewalk issue, and as I was sitting here, I noticed on page 2, I indicate here that the assessment on a benefit district for each lot per year would be $475,000.
wow, that's an expensive.
That should be
sidewalk.
$475 a year per lot. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And happy to.
Is that 50 as a 15-year benefit district?
Right. And happy to answer any questions you have on that. But also wanted to let you know that at the next meeting, my daughter's making her confirmation at church, and they've scheduled it for Thursday, 7 o'clock, so I won't be at the next meeting.
Okay.
So if you guys can behave yourself, that'd be great.
we'll try.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Patrick. So on this Oak Country side, I mean, is it at the point now to be implemented, or?
Well,
What do
I think
mean?
I talked to Lee Harris, who is essentially the decision maker, and he's fine with reaching out to the owners out there and just sort of sharing information with them. And
Okay.
he felt like the $475 a lot per year, and I feel like it. I mean, I wouldn't think that property owners would be that up in arms, for that amount on a budget district. But we'll know better. I think Mike and I were planning on having a meeting with the owners just to kind of gauge their sentiment on everything.
Yeah, I think, the time is coming when that last lot will be sold, and then that person's going to want a building permit, and we have this agreement we're going to say, hey, we can't give you a building permit because of the sidewalk issue. We definitely want to avoid that. We think we want to have that conversation. We don't want to just give the residents a 7-page letter that explains it all. We want to have that conversation. It's just better to probably schedule some sort of a neighborhood meeting where we can have at least an initial discussion to see what that group wants to do.
Okay.
I hope it also is a little bit of a kind of a lesson learned, or that we take a lesson learned out of this, in that obviously the intent at the time was, there was hard times in the economy and didn't want to make the developer build the sidewalk. But guess what happens? Ownership changes, and then those good intentions go in an entirely different direction. I did have a conversation with one of the homeowners there, just purely by chance. I was at an event, and where you live, DeSoto? Oh, where you live, DeSoto? Well, lo and behold, they live in this area. Oh, got talking about the sidewalk issue. And she was saying, yeah, we just walk in the street, well, that's kind of my neighborhood too. But your neighborhood was intended to have sidewalks. And so that was frustrating that it hit the communication to the people who have bought and built houses over the years has been non-existent, essentially, as to what transpired here. But I think we just got to be conscious of obligations that entities have when they're going to build infrastructure in our community, that mechanisms get made that they continue to be held to that requirement. And this is one where it got away because land ownership changed hands. So, but I just hope we have that as a little lesson learned in way deals like that get done.
Okay. Moving on then. Brad.
Just a couple items, Council. The seal coat work for 90th Street, Old Country 8, and Harbor Ridge Phase 1 has been put out to bid. And then also, Oak River Road repairs. We got about 55 transverse cracks.
What are you going to do to those?
They're going to be milled, and then we're going to fill a crack below that, and then that's going to be separate.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a better way?
Not if I know. I told you the better way on commerce, and I don't think it was a better way, right?
No. Yeah, we're open to suggestions on those cracks.
I don't know.
Is that fixing that water spot there too?
The underground
by,
spring at Zimmerman
by the barn, up by the barn.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna address that with
We're going to do that in-house.
cut an under drain there.
Yeah.
Okay. What else you got, sir? All right. Lana, anything tonight?
I do one thing.
Okay.
I will be in Birmingham at the next meeting, so our executive director of the EDC, Sarah Ritter, said she would gladly step in and take the minutes for me, so be kind to Sarah. So she takes the minutes, since Patrick and I both will be gone. And just once again, thank you to each one of you for supporting me in this next really big step. The butterflies are starting to take over my tummy, so I appreciate all of
You
you.
do outstanding work for IMC, Lana, and for getting DeSoto's name out.
That I can
world.
do. I have no problem talking about my hometown, so thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Council comments. Danny, would you like to start tonight?
Fine, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. Kevin?
I actually have a couple. I had a resident call me that lives down by 85th and High, and there's been some four-wheelers riding along the railroad tracks and have been pushing the ballast away from the tracks. and he's concerned with that since we just made those repairs to that crossing and stuff. So he'd like to see maybe some extra patrol in that area. Then the second one, I was talking to Mike before the meeting at Arcadian and the entrance coming in at 98th. And with the speeds that have been out there in the dump trucks and things, wanted to see how the council felt about making that a four-way stop when that's a finished project, or possibly making it a three-way stop until it is finished.
So
Similar to
98th
Chorus.
lines up with their new entrance. You're suggesting that would be a four-way there then?
And be a four-way stop to slow the traffic down that comes down
Do we
there.
need a traffic study for that, Mike?
You know, I don't think so. I think it just requires an ordinance.
Approved by the city engineer.
Oh, is that it?
I didn't get a chance to ask Kevin how he felt about he lives there, so, but I just know that, we talk about the safety of pedestrians walking up and down there all the time, and with the truck traffic that's been recent and the cars that.
So what is all the
speed in.
source of this truck traffic? Do we know that?
Down south somewhere.
gonna be?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know when they were drilling the interduct for the stuff and the trucks were going by, it made that very impassable right there at that corner. And then, like I said, the speeds of the cars are always have been bad there. And I just referenced it kind of like the Corliss 89th Street intersection. It has that three-way stop. It seems to work well for that part of the part of the area. So I thought maybe a four-way stop might work great there.
Although I think Rob mentioned repeated violations at that three-way stop.
Oh, Corliss and 87.
Yeah,
Yeah, they fly through that.
that would probably be my first concern is if that's violated, the expectation of somebody else at that intersection is that they're going to stop. The pedestrian issue, I hope we can deal with the trail along Waverly, because just, again, tonight, driving here to the council meeting, there's a family, either that or we need to sign Waverly as a multi-use path, right? It just needs to be signed that you're gonna have bikes, you're gonna have pedestrians, everything on that. And then there were joggers on 95th, but at least that's got the striped shoulders. But I don't know. I guess I would just offhand, I would want to make sure that a four-way stops that doesn't create a bad situation by an expectation that somebody is going to stop and they blow through it, kind of a thing.
Like I said, I just wanted to bring it up for consideration. We're gonna have two
It's an
folks
idea.
pulling out of there.
As the traffic, even when you know that the truck traffic slowed down. Actually, Ron Crease and I drove farther south on Waverly. And there's somebody, landowner built a very large reservoir and pond down there. So I was kind of surmising that they might have just been bringing in truck.
Oh, I'm going to presume whatever it is transient. I mean, there's not a quarry or anything down there, so it's transient, and it is going to go away. And I will say I haven't seen it as much here lately.
I think it's slowed down the past week
Yeah.
or so, but
Yeah, it was pretty
as that
crazy there for a
residential
while.
thing finishes and you have multiple cars coming out of there, I just thought maybe it might be keep somebody from getting hurt. The last thing I have is the traffic signal at Lexington and Commerce. What is the date for installation on that, predicted date?
Yeah, I've issued the notice to proceed on that. And they have, I think it was 60 days in their bid. They were talking about wanting to wait until the school was out. They really only have about a week's worth of work to do.
I know Joel said they had submitted shop drawings, because I asked him how it was going, so they were.
Yeah.
I think he has reviewed the shop drawings and got them back to him.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I think the equipment has been ordered or is in process of being ordered, so.
Good enough. I was
It's
hoping,
getting closer.
I was just hoping we weren't waiting for KDOT or something. I thought
Nope.
we'd get the lights and
Nope.
cameras up, and if that was,
The
KDOT was the last
clock's
thing they
ticking
could
on them now.
strap that later. That's all I had.
Thank you, Kevin. Rob?
Not anything tonight at this point. Kevin took one of them. Other than, what would be our ability on the sand quarry?
So,
Besides
I was gonna bring that, if we wanted to talk about
besides
the
showing
end
up
of the meeting.
and
So,
giving our opinion.
you wanna, I mean, I think
Yeah.
Mike has shared what we've done so far, but
Right.
we could have a greater opinion or a different, or more vocal, if that's how we felt, so go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, the public hearing's set for May 8th, so it's Wednesday evening.
Have you heard confirmation that that is actually gonna happen?
I saw on Facebook today that it was canceled, so I was
Yeah.
gonna call Leavenworth County Planning and make sure that it's still on. But last I heard it was, and that's the public notice that
That was in the handout.
Stephanie hung around or handed out was for the 8th. I included, my correspondence to Leavenworth County Planning that our concerns are the truck traffic and the water quality for the groundwater. The application materials indicate that the quarry will not be open for retail sales, but that this is only in support of a processing facility that's in Edwardsville. So that, I don't know if it's 100% or 99% or whatever. All the traffic's going to be going from the quarry to the north through Leavenworth County. My comment on that was good. We're glad to hear that. If there's an occasional one or two trucks that come through DeSoto, I don't know that that's a great big deal for us. But we would like that memorialized in the use permit that all the truck traffic, or the vast majority of it, would go north, just to confirm that assumption. The issue on the groundwater quality, some of the application materials that we got initially talked about the control of runoff from the site and retaining the runoff from the site so that it doesn't get into the Kansas River, so that silt and sedimentation doesn't get to the Kansas River. Part of the plan for that was to direct surface water into the pit. And we think that's the exact wrong thing to do from a groundwater quality management standpoint. Penny Sand, for instance, has a berm all the way up around the pits to make sure that groundwater does not enter that pit, because that's a straight connection to our groundwater source. We have wells on the north side of the river. The closest one's about a little under half a mile from the pit site. Probably not a good.
Do you could roll
Yeah,
over to
yeah, I
that
could,
site
yeah.
while we're.
It's probably pretty well protected from a groundwater standpoint. So here's the Burning Tree Golf Course. The pit area is this. I think it's this entire quarter section
right.
here, almost quarter section. Our nearest well is right here. So is that might be a quarter mile then? Yeah, it's only a quarter mile. Sorry, it's a quarter mile from there. So if this pit were completely open, the kind of the thing to understand about this aquifer is that the water that's there that we're pumping out of isn't necessarily flowing like a river through this area all the time. It is gradually moving in a downstream direction, but when we pump out of, say, that well there, it's not necessarily going to be pulling water from a pit over here a quarter mile away all the way up into here. The chances of that happening are relatively remote. But we still do have concern that it could impact the water quality. So for that concern, we've asked them to include in the use permit a requirement to install monitoring wells, at least two between the pit and our well, and that those wells be monitored, at least once every other month or every 4 months or something like by an independent laboratory, and that we get the results of that. It's to kind of protect our interests there. For comparison, Olathe has their well field, a lot of vertical wells right here. Penny Sand has been operating over there for decades without a problem. And so, just given that example, I think, some of the fears that you might have about that could be somewhat allayed by that.
First pump down that road there from Burning Tree on the left-hand side, who owns that? That's about right there.
Yeah, so that's one of the sunflower, SRL owns it. That's one of the original 12 sunflower wells,
Okay.
one that we don't have an interest in. I suggested that as a good monitoring location. There's a casing there, and you could dump, you could use that as a monitoring spot. But
Now, does Olathe have any concern with that since they've had future wells?
Kevin, I haven't contacted Olathe. I don't know that they even know.
That's why they bought Burning Tree, was a future
They
well
would have
field.
been. They would have been noticed as the owner of that property. They would have been noticed, given the public notice.
So it's just
But I haven't heard. I
what
haven't
their
talked,
concern might be.
I haven't talked with them. I would imagine that they, with their experience with this pit over here, that they're probably not terribly concerned. I didn't indicate anything to the Leavenworth County planners about any concern, any other concerns at all, with the noise or the dust or any of the other impacts that we heard from the public tonight. Of course, I do plan on attending, and yeah, we'll make sure that that's still on.
It's
for
possible I
Wednesday.
might have misunderstood the noise study or misread it, but when I looked at it, it looked like to me that the decibel reading at, because that's what I was concerned about, what it was at Burning Tree's property line. I thought I'd read that it was about 68 decibels at Burning Tree's property line. If I and not 98 or whatever, which is about where I'm talking right now, probably, somewhere around that. So
I thought I'd heard 70 the first time too.
yeah. I mean, I think that it was 90 at the source, but every, I don't know, quarter mile it cuts, it drops quite a bit. But I just scanned through the noise study that Mike had included in the packet a while back, last week.
The activity report? Yeah.
Last Friday.
Yeah.
So I guess,
It's gonna be a comparable operation of Penny's,
right.
right? And we haven't heard complaints, say, at Jerry Johnson's or
Never had a noise complaint with Pennies.
from Penny's?
Never. The other thing with this is they're talking about an electric dredge rather than a diesel.
Right, they
So
were
that-
talking electric
And I don't
equipment.
know if that was something that was a sure thing or not. But that was something that I also encouraged, just from a groundwater quality standpoint, if you have the diesel.
Yeah, right, chance of a
potential.
spill and,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I don't know if that's
yeah.
what the direction they're going or not.
Well, I mean, I guess in full disclosure, someone from my, I don't have anything to do with it, I don't know anything about it, but someone from my office is working on it, and I said, you guys ought to have a meeting with Great Light, go down there and talk to them and find out their concerns and see if you can explain exactly what it is you're proposing and allay those concerns. If not, it might be that providing information is the key to the solution, or the key to the solution to the situation. I just wanted to know if, as a group, we wanted to strengthen our response to Leavenworth County beyond our concerns about traffic. And, we could certainly include something about noise. If noise exiting the property line is greater than some certain level, that would be troublesome. I guess at our city limit, which is the Burning Tree Golf Course, say if noise is greater than 65 decibels at our city limit, I'm throwing a number out. I don't know what that number is, but just a thought that we may have, because a new tree planted. Stephanie's very correct. A new tree planted does nothing to mitigate noise.
Are there other
If they wanted to mitigate noise, they'd need to push a big pile of sand up
Yeah.
down there, because a tall berm does a whole lot more than a pine tree. So. Just a thought I had that perhaps we just asked to make sure that the county makes sure the operator would mitigate noise at our city limit or something along those lines.
And what is kind of interesting is, Joan has a business here and has been here, but it's, these are residents that live in that area. They're not DeSoto residents, so it's not that I don't, I understand their concern and everything, but it's hard to know exactly which way to go. And it seems to make more sense to try to find solutions to the problems if they're going to go there and make sure that everything is
Right.
minimized as far as the problems that are there, rather than us as a city just taking a stance against it totally because of issues that just because of what they've said, I mean, I'd think I'd need more information for sure and more detailed by somebody explaining this in a lot more detail to me to know that it's really going to be these as extreme a negative effects as what's being said here. So,
Well, and I think part of my question was, I mean, we can go there and say our piece, but is there any real recourse that we?
No, I don't think we don't have any more
So
than
yeah,
a
so I
citizen.
mean, at that
Probably
point,
less.
Probably less than a citizen of.
They're gonna say,
yeah,
yeah,
at that point we
Yeah,
show up,
right.
we make our complaints, but if it's happening, we
Right.
really can't do anything.
I mean, we can't
Right.
do anything to other than saying we don't want you there, and they'll say so.
Yeah, so
I mean, but if
for
we ask,
mitigating circumstances.
but
Yeah,
if we
so-
ask to help make it better,
yeah, and that's where I mean, if we can't do anything about it, then we try and work with them to get mitigating
right?
responses to it and try and at least address concerns.
Right.
And I guess to the
Ours and
extent
the-
of the noise, we've got noise ordinances, or
Right.
right?
That's
If
what
it
we would
were-
go
if
back
the
to.
decibel levels are tied to what we've made other internal requirements,
Right.
and said, hey, we would hope that if
Yes.
the decibel levels crossing into the city limits
Exactly. That's where I
exceed
was going.
thresholds that that exceed our ordinances, that you would have something in place to try to mitigate that.
Right.
And yeah, I'm thinking it's up in the upper 60s, or
Maybe
it might even be higher.
Yeah. But that
For
would
people
be
playing
that
their stereo
threshold.
too loud and stuff like that.
Okay. I'm glad that you brought. I wanted to bring that up, Rob, just to make sure we.
I was wondering
Wanted
if
to
we were going to
talk
talk
about
about
that.
it, but we did. Now,
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to take it up then because we had our agenda to
Right.
deal with, but
right?
I don't want to just blow it off and not.
No, it's important
Address
that
it.
we
Yeah, and
address
we-
it.
And we definitely want to make our concerns known and try and get them mitigated, but
That'd be a commercial property, right?
Commercial
Yeah,
or
it's-
industrial, I don't.
In the evening, in the overnight.
The golf course is right
Oh,
there.
the golf
so
course,
that would
yeah.
be commercial.
So 65 decibels, right? Yeah, so we would ask that they would make sure that the noise level didn't exceed 65 decibels at the city limit. And that's what we can ask.
So the well testers.
Yeah. Traffic, we had traffic covered, we had the monitoring wells, and now we can
Yeah.
add a concern about noise and,
So I'll supplement what I've already sent to the Leavenworth Planning with the noise request. I'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you.
And then we'll be at the public hearing. And I'll verify that's going on with the Leavenworth Planning.
think that would, I mean, again, I'm not involved, but I did ask Tom, and he said it was postponed because of review by, but apparently they haven't posted official notice yet.
Oh, I haven't checked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was good work. Anything else, Rob? Lori?
I don't think so tonight. Thank you.
All right. Kevin?
No report, but a question. Mike, did you want to give any quick summary on the,
On our retreat?
Yeah.
Yesterday? Yeah, would you?
or is that in your mayor's report?
That's the mayor problem.
No, it's, you know,
I'm done.
you're done.
You want to do it?
All right.
You're doing a good job at summarizing things.
Yeah.
I kinda like your
So
summaries.
Mike and Kevin, feel free to jump in at any
Yeah.
point when I have glossed something over. But we had a great, it was a long day, but we did have a great 8 hours with Mary Birch, who provided unfiltered assessment of where we are and helped us get on a good direction to go forward. But the long and short of it is, what she has recommended that we do is flip the organization where the EDC is the stronger position in the organization, and that's the position that the city then would, where we're looking at funding more than would be directly to that executive, and then that we would have our input on that position. And then the chamber then would hire its own second person to manage their events and activities. I think there was consensus among the group on both sides. The challenges obviously are going to be additional funding, which I think we have identified in our budget to increase our funding. But the chamber's going to have to come up with additional funds to fully fund their manager, vice president, however you want to call them. This process will take place over the period of, well, won't be implemented until 2020, because certainly that's first our funds would be available to increase, to support the effort. And we'll spend the next year planning and figuring out how that's all going to shake out. And Kevin, jump in. What have I forgotten?
Well, just in general, it's very positive, very productive.
Yeah.
It was an exhausting. Mary Birch runs a nonstop thinking process. It was really, really good. But at the end, it was very positive, very productive. We really feel good about opportunities. The one thing that came up, the other thing came up several times from the Chamber EDC's activities in the city is communication. Came up repeatedly. And so, we talked about, I don't know how many times you said 3 or 4 times that, the city's looking at funding something for communication on the city's side to help get the message out about what they're doing. But I think it was pretty clear that maybe over the course of a decade, that lack of communication of activities in the city and city plans and chamber activities and business activities and
School activities.
and school
to those that aren't
activities.
involved in
It was
schools
just
anymore.
it all
Yeah.
really came together during.
Yeah, I
during
drew
this.
a flow chart or this picture that said, so we have the chamber with an arrow in of information, we have the schools with an arrow, we have the city with an arrow, then we have this communication mixing pot, communication consultant, and then that's where a single source then would be ideal then to distribute out to our constituency, because we have a shared constituency.
Yeah.
And we don't have a common message, but we all have something we need to tell to the same people. Not that our communication consultant is that person, but that there's almost like
Nobody, and each entity has a role in that. The school
Yeah.
district was very proactive. Alvy was there, and very proactive in that conversation as well. But there's got to be multi-channel communication.
yeah.
Electronic means, print means, but just a huge appetite for enhanced communications within the city. So it really reinforced this idea of the city having their part of the communications platform under control. But very positive, very productive.
Anything to add, Mike?
Well, not a whole lot. I think structurally the idea is, with the EDC being the parent organization, the chamber being under that, you have one board of directors. You don't have 2. So it's the EDC has a board of directors or whatever you want to call that. But then from the chamber standpoint, it's more of an executive committee that serves as a liaison. So there's not 2 separate boards trying to run the one organization. I thought that was a pretty insightful.
I think it's kind of reversed, though. The chamber had a board, but the EDC was more of a more nimble executive committee.
Did I get
a smaller group?
Executive committee.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, you're right. The chamber was the one with the
Board. Right.
Right. Okay. And then just from a task list standpoint, there's a recognition that there's just too much stuff right now that we're expecting of the organization. Even after you add staff and add people there, we really need to look at what we're doing specifically in terms of events. On the chamber side, a lot of the events are just kind of fundraising so that the chamber can still exist. And maybe the thought is to move away from some of that. In exchange for that, you increase your dues. And while you're doing that, you make clear to your members what the value is. So there's kind of a process where we define what the value is going to be, roll out the increase in dues campaign, and then have a look at these events and look at them from a comprehensive standpoint, see which one of these you really need to keep doing, which ones can other organizations, other entities take on from a chamber standpoint. So I think the realization that we've got the chamber with the EDC, the city council, the school district, all headed now in the same direction. Everybody understands that they are the marketing, the promotion, the citizen engagement wing of what we do. A lot of that's chamber functions and EDC functions. And if we have widgets we're making over here, we need to have a widget sales department, and that's kind of what they are. And I think it's very positive.
one other, just FYI, I did talk to Mayor of Lenexa, Mike Vame, about Leadership Lenexa and holding a few spots, and he thought that was a great idea. So he was going to talk to their EDC people. So
Can you give just a little bit of background on that?
on what Leadership Lenexa is,
No,
or
on why, on what we were asking for.
okay, yeah. So Lenexa, Shawnee, Overland Park, they have leadership programs to bring people up in, teach people how to be leaders in their communities through education in civic operations, so city, state, governments, business. But as a chamber, and those are funded by the chambers, as a chamber, we're not big enough to have that sort of annual class, but we talked about the opportunity if one of our adjacent cities would have an opportunity to allow us to nominate a few folks to go through that leadership training. I believe it's like a year-long, monthly meetings, half a day where you're exposed to different elements, and so I happened to be the mayor's meeting last night, our monthly Johnson County Mayor's meeting. So I just asked Mayor Boehm of Lenexa, "What do you think?" He said he thinks that'd be a great idea. That's awesome. So he was going to speak to their EDC chamber people about just apprise them of it. But yeah, I think that's something we can start moving forward with.
Because Gardner's done that as well for a while, I think. I know several people that have graduated down there.
Yeah,
I didn't.
From Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
Gardner. Yeah. I don't think I have anything else. There's probably something else that I was thinking about.
Anything from the mayor's meeting?
I think, it's nothing too exciting. The jail fees are going up $15. I think they shared that with you, or the county.
I missed the county.
Oh,
I was
okay,
at the,
well,
I was at the retreat
Yeah.
instead of the managers roundtable. Yeah.
So the cost to house prisoners from cities is going to go up from $35 to $50, which is still a bargain apparently, because Wyandotte County is $98 a night, so we're still getting a bargain, but it's going up. The other thing that was interesting that Chairman Eilert did bring up is the thought that, so I get your feedback on this, that they might start issuing a notice to appear instead of booking someone in, as apparently takes an hour and a half to book someone in on a minor offense, such as a minor shoplifting or a minor in possession or something like that, or a minor possession, drug possession, whatever it might be. But that takes an hour and a half of a person's time to book someone in, and they're thinking that if on some of these lesser minor offenses, if they can issue a notice to appear, then they can save a substantial amount of staff time, and hopefully then the idea would then be to study that whether or not people are actually showing up for their court appearance, and if it's not working, then that would go back to the other. But I think it makes great sense, to save the booking time, the jail time, and somebody can go to work, still be productive.
The bondsmen don't like that.
That could be.
I was going to say, having done ride-alongs, having been with them, that's not an exaggeration on time.
Yeah.
Really, hour and a half.
And it's not just one person's time; it's several people that are tied up. So that's a significant time savings, and so a way to keep our jailing costs from escalating. So, but I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it's a great idea. Give it a try. If it works well, then we certainly can keep going with it. If it doesn't, we go back to the way we're doing it now, and nothing's lost. That was about it. I did share the great news of Lana's inauguration with our fellow mayors. They were all duly impressed. And I shared that we're going to have our broadband ribbon cutting soon. I didn't share a date because I didn't.
We don't have a date. We don't
but,
have a date. It's up to the governor.
Yeah. So that's all I have.
I got one other thing. If you saw it in around DeSoto, if anybody sees a tire and a wheel along 83rd Street, we're looking for one. No, it's not. That's why I put a picture of the tire and wheel. But yeah, we're still missing it.
Could be down
There was
Might be.
a car missing one on 91st Street yesterday. It was stuck in the middle of the street.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.